Hello and welcome to Frankly Speaking, a new show where we'll be talking politics and hopefully speaking openly, honestly and frankly without the need for hating each other. Here on the show I've got my good friend Corey who's joining me.
Hello.
We thought we'd do this after we talk a lot of politics at work. Usually we tend to agree, sometimes we disagree, but it's always civil no matter what. And I mean there's some people we know we work with and we're friends with who we've talked politics with, and whilst, we disagree, it's quite civil. However, in the year of 2020, when things like with Madonna look like she's imitating shitting in a bath being normal, and genres on Pornhub named taboo, so I hear, being less taboo than talking politics. And if you want to see Madonna shitting in the bath, she's definitely shitting in the bath.
Yeah, I think part of it has already floated up around the outside of her.
Yeah.
She needs to stop eating pink Oreos.
But yes, most importantly, here we want to talk with people we disagree with. They might have a different opinion to us that actually makes sense, and they might make it make sense. Same goes for us. We may have a view on the world that works for the people when they actually break it down. They don't know unless we talk civilly with it.
We're looking for a civil discourse, aren't we?
Yes. We want to exchange ideas rather than punches.
Yes. Well, if needs be, we're happy to throw fists, but we'll save it for now.
I mean, to be fair, violence literally does solve everything. But that's not what we're going for here. But the winner of the fight wins the fight. Anyway. So today we want to be talking more about COVID in the UK and then going on to the US election, which is still actually ongoing.
As opposed to what the media would like to say to you.
Yes.
Biden has won, people.
Which, that's actually a brilliant way to go into it. So in America, if you just watched BBC News, Sky News, any of the main news sources, you would think it's all dead and buried. And one of the main things we always hear is there's no evidence.
Baseless claims.
Baseless claims, yes. When there is
exponential evidence.
Yes. If you refuse to look at it, there is no evidence. But if you're very open-minded, there is tons. Some of it is, a claim that to somebody who actually believes in it, it seems quite clear, but there's no substantial backing for that claim. But there is a lot of that.
It's kind of like common sense claims almost.
Yeah, there's all the common sense claims which, yes, in a court of law wouldn't work. But there's a lot out there, actually, where it's backed up. So you see things like, vote tampering. No, there's none of that. There is literal footage of people tampering votes.
Ripping up ballots for Mr.
Ripping
Trump.
up ballots, yes. And ironically, that guy then deleted that TikTok. And I don't know if anyone here has ever seen an American ballot. It's not just an A4 piece of paper. It's a big old unit of paper.
Yeah. When he ripped it, it actually sounded quite thick and impressive.
It's quite cardy, isn't it? It's quite cardy.
Not Cardi B, by the way.
Yeah. Who did you see the interview she did with Joe Biden during the campaign?
I don't even think he knew who she was.
Yeah.
I was thinking, who famous
Who's
can
young
we
and
get?
hip to the kids know and like?
Yeah.
Cardi B. She actually admitted to drugging and robbing men, didn't she?
Yeah, but it's okay though because she's a woman of power and independence.
Strong and independent.
Yeah.
So yes, back to the whole claims of fraud. Very recently, there was a Trump legal team press conference where they outlined some of the evidence. And again, there was a lot of people saying, we want to see more. Show us the evidence. Leave that for a courtroom.
Yeah, they can't actually go in.
There will be something you literally cannot do unless you're in a courtroom.
It's like, you see these clips people have when someone has assaulted them or something's happened inside the house. They can't post that to social media because then it becomes invalid in a court.
And at the end of the day, it also gives the opposition a time to prep.
Exactly.
But yes, they did this over an hour-long news conference where they outlined the path to victory. And I remember actually, there's one moment where Rudy Giuliani, and I quote, says, we have 18 different ways to prove it. Now, I then saw Sky News straight after, and all they could do was giggle about his hair dye running with his sweat. And then said, more baseless claims. Now, if you just watch the news, you would think baseless claims because it's all you ever hear. You'd also think you're going to die if you leave your house tomorrow.
They also said, he actually said, while being interviewed by the media themselves, the reason they did that press conference was to almost go above the media and actually show their own voice.
I mean,
because the media wouldn't cover it.
They have to.
They would not cover it. And it doesn't... For the general public who just, and I've spoken to a few people who only watch such as Sky News or The Guardian, or in America you have all the, the Guardian. But
That's your paper, though, it's fine. Here we're speaking openly and frankly.
But they source all these locations, and they just, you read it and you think, that's it, blanket statement. What the media is saying must be true. Why would the media lie? Why would they have a different agenda? They're just the media. It's not the case. He had to physically explain to the media while they were sat there that they're doing this because you're not doing your job.
Yeah, well, they did that the other night in the Pennsylvania hearing. So they actually, in America, so it's a really complex political system. So, being president is not the be-all and end-all. You have state governors, you have state legislators, senators, congressmen, or women. And so the state legislators of Pennsylvania wanted a public hearing where, and I mean, there was tons of evidence and some very credible people putting forth what they have seen, what they know, and stuff that really should be taken seriously. And so since then, Arizona are now doing one. They're doing that's Monday. They're doing another public hearing. Sidney Powell has filed a lawsuit in Georgia against ironically, the Republican governor for basically not doing his job properly. And in this lawsuit, there's 104 pages. And this is all down to what Sidney Powell was claiming she was going to release the Kraken, which, as it turns out, is a military cyber defense system. Where basically they've kind of snooped, but, for the right reasons. And got
for
all
democracy.
Oh, yes, for democracy.
Yeah.
And again, I'll quickly go on to that. People worry that, getting in the way of democracy. Well, no, if my team loses, and I've seen a lot of other Republicans in America where if they can prove that Joe Biden actually got 80 million votes and actually did way better than Barack Obama's landslide, despite rarely doing any public rallies. Some days they'd literally tell the media, no more questions, from 9 a.m. in the morning.
You had to sleep.
True. That's why he's always got brain fog. He's always still half asleep.
Yeah, still recovering from that nap.
Where was I?
A Joe Biden moment.
Yeah. So if it is the case he has legitimately won, there shouldn't be any reason to hide and wish to prove that he has won. Because at the end of the day, if not, America is a broken state. Democracy is all about accepting a result if it's fair and right. So the way I see it at the moment is you could either they do a full-on audit and go through the courts and do things legally and properly and prove things, and I do think Trump would win, or they don't, and there could be a national divorce. I've heard some political commentators talk about literally America splitting into multiple nations.
Middle of a while.
That'd be a lot of bricks.
Yeah.
Because basically, for the Midwest and across, from what we see at the moment, now we'll get on to switching of votes, which there are again some substantial claims, and there's evidence to kind of say that is the case. With the states of how they've been won, the two coasts are blue and then the middle is red, so you could split into three. Or a civil war. Now, America's had a civil war in the past around slavery, and I don't actually think that would be too far-fetched given the current world climate. We have people who don't trust the media, don't trust the government, quite often now don't trust science.
You have also Black Lives Matter and Antifa quite rampant at the moment. inserting violence onto people.
Yeah.
Where, you know, eventually it's going to come a point where if they continue and persist, eventually people are going to turn around and go, enough's enough.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was that Carl Rittenhouse who's basically out patrolling the streets when businesses were being destroyed, wanting to do his bit to protect them. He's recently been bailed out of prison for £2 million. $2 million, sorry. Because, you know, someone got shot. But in the video, he gets attacked by a fair few people and defends himself.
I think what people really need to realise, and this is what I've had to explain to a few individuals that I've had these discussions with, who maybe could be left-leaning or not even left-leaning, just neutral, and they just listen to the media. This needs to be sorted, as you said, for democracy, because America itself is the free speech world. It's the king of the crop.
It's the last line of defence, the way I see it.
It's the big brother to everyone else who wants to support democracy. If they lose that, that leaves the rest of the world in a very poor state.
Yeah.
And so it's something where if this isn't fraud and it's completely baseless claims eventually proven over time or sorted at the very least, fair enough. Well, at least we know democracy is still intact.
Yeah.
But if this is completely ignored and pushed past and treated as a joke, as the media have taken it, then where is democracy? What comes for the next election? Or what does that show for lesser countries, you know, such as Great Britain? If that can happen in America, where, you know, they're meant to be a mass power,
they are the beacon of hope.
What can happen here?
Yeah.
And that's what people need to understand, that a lot of us aren't necessarily fighting this to bring Trump back into power, whatever it may be. We're not fighting for that. You know, we're British ourselves. We would prefer him in, but
my personal choice. But at the end of the day, you know, like we said, we want to speak openly and frankly. If you have a different opinion to us, that's fine. So many of my friends are quite left wing. But at the end of the day, they're my mates.
Same here.
And you know, I'm not their friend because they like Jeremy Corbyn or Joe Biden. They're my mates because they'll do something that makes me laugh, or they're just good fun to be with. And that's what politics really should be. It should be open, honest conversation where at the end of the day, you go, right, well, you know, I disagree with you, you disagree with me. However, we both support Middlesbrough. Let's go watch the football. Let's go at the pint.
Poor souls.
Yeah, I know. Doesn't get much worse.
I mean, I support Cardiff, so
yeah,
similar boat. Similar boat, worse weather.
But one thing that can be sure is that there are so many cases of at least irregularities and fraud.
I think this is a good thing that it's happened as well, because if you think of Dominion, which I'm sure you'll probably get into, the fact that it's now being caught out. If it hadn't been caught out at this election, say Trump won, but it was still an issue, what was to say in another 4 years' time, something even worse happens with their voting system? So it's good that this happens because it actually encourages and incentivizes the state to actually reevaluate their voting systems and their polling systems, and how to adjust it and how to avoid fraud.
To be honest, at the end of the day, they kind of brought this on themselves. Have paper ballots.
They didn't bring it on themselves. They wanted it on themselves.
yeah. And that's what I don't get with America. Each state decides how they
It's
vote.
like an individual country, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Amongst loads
I mean, they are sizes. States are sizes of countries. Like,
well, it's like Great Britain. We have Wales, England, Scotland. I mean, Wales is probably the same size as one of the states, I imagine, even smaller.
No, the UK is smaller than a lot of states.
Exactly.
They are huge. When I flew to Vegas, it's nearly an 11-hour flight to Vegas. Half of that flight, you're flying over America. It's 6 hours to New York.
That's it, and that's why I imagine it's such an important thing to have your voting system so narrowed down and sorted.
Yeah.
Because there's so, you know, yes, they're putting all these claims and these lawsuits, but there's so many fighting grounds that they must now win.
Yeah.
And it can be quite difficult and quite taxing, I imagine. It must be going into, like, it's not just, you know, a state's a state, but it's a country essentially.
Yeah.
And so that's like going into a different country
Texas
each time.
is the only state that has its flag not the same height as the US flag. But, yeah, so speaking about Dominion, it actually came about by two Venezuelans in America for Hugo Chavez. So he had a referendum in his in his country, and I can't remember what it was over. Basically, it didn't go how he wanted it. So they had this, and which is then used in Venezuela, Now, if I am wrong on anything, but from the things
I
I've
know,
seen,
I know what you're
yeah.
saying and what I've seen, so you're on track so far.
And it's used there, and suddenly everything that goes in his favour.
It was like an election didn't go the way he wanted, and so he installed
Yeah,
these
it was
systems.
referendum,
So
I think it was.
next time round, this would not happen.
Yeah.
That's essentially what he did, and then he managed to distribute them into America,
Yeah,
into their states.
And one thing that has actually been proven true in all this is, so the first one was in Michigan.
Mm.
We had the Dominion software, or was it Smartmatic? Anyway, I think they're actually two different things, but they do the same thing. Two different companies, same sort of thing. Anyway, that aside, the voting software switched to nearly 6,000 votes. Now, if it can happen in one place, there has to be an audit across I think
Anywhere
it's
with
30
Dominion.
states that use them.
That's shambolic.
Yeah, I mean, there's 50 states in America.
50, yeah. 50 stars on the flag. Once we get the flag up next year.
Yeah. Now, whoever's right and wrong, whoever's won and lost, that has to be proven properly. So you have to satisfy both sides. I don't mean satisfy with, oh, I'm not satisfied because I lost. Satisfy they get an honest answer.
Let's look at it realistically, though. If this had happened the other way round, this would be all over the media.
They have just spent 4 years saying their election system is broken, Russian interference, was then proven in court, no interference. Funny enough, Joe Biden did get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow.
Oh, is it Moscow?
I say Moscow. Moscow, and some people say Moscow, I don't know why. Who has direct links to Vladimir Putin. So, if anything, it's technically Russian interference, but on the wrong side.
Joe's the big man, is he not?
Yeah.
I think you're the big man. I'm not sure, Joe.
Who built the cages, Joe?
Who built the cages?
And suddenly, when it goes in their favour, no, the election's completely secure. There is no interference. Can't happen.
One thing I wonder, and again, I've spoken, as I keep saying, I've spoken to a few people about this. Why are the media so not just anti-Trump, but anti-right to some extent?
Anti-truth.
Why is it so left-leaning and so against sorting out these claims? And you can look at big tech, which is a huge thing, and you've got Amazon, Google, and they're all based in China. And then you start to get into the theory of, well, is China trying to take over the world slowly, and is there control of the media? Is that what's happening? Because whatever's being said in the media isn't being said by the man in front of the desk, it's being said by whoever's above him in control. And so, but I do wonder, why is it that they're so biased in that way? And how long has that been the case? Because I've only really noticed it now because I've looked into it.
Yeah.
How long have I been lied to and not actually clicked onto it?
Yeah, it was only a couple of years ago when I'd use Sky News for all my stuff, and it, as far as I was aware then, it was very genuine.
Yeah.
But was it? I don't know. Now that I've actually seen things now where you go, you just outright deceived your viewership there.
To the point where you could say they're lying. And it's not necessary. They're very clever though, aren't they? Because it's not a lie.
Yes.
They
play with the truth.
Yeah, it's a different version of the truth. It's very deceiving and scary because when you notice it, suddenly you go, where's the truth?
And what scares me is when you notice it and somebody else does not.
And it fries your brain in trying to explain it to her without sounding like a loony.
Yeah, we really can't stress, despite the fact I know we've come off quite hard with our own opinions here.
I think we can come off like that at times because of how the media has dealt with the situation.
I am passionate about it.
We've become more frustrated and passionate about the situation than maybe we should be. But it's because of how much is being hidden and lied and twisted. If everything was quite neutral, we'd probably be quite relaxed with it. We've been wound up almost. And so, we're calling it back and want a civil discourse and conversation with people. But at the same time, some things need to be said. When democracy is being thrown into the tipper and the media is lying that it's happening.
But anyone who watches, if you have something that you're opposed to on what we're saying or have another idea of things, by all means, let us know. But do so civilly. If you do so in a civil manner, you'll have my attention. If you have a better idea, you will change my mind. I'm all for having my mind changed. Back in 2016, at the start of the referendum, I was quite Remain. arguments were put forward to me that made sense. Next thing you know, I'm an avid lever. Last American election, I think the Democrats are probably the best choice for the US and the world. Obama's done a pretty good job. Things are put forward and you go, Obama didn't do a pretty good job. And actually, this guy, yeah, he's brash and he can be rude, but he does the job.
I think if Trump was, and I say this as a joke, but if Trump was good on the microphone like Obama was and do mic drops and say cool sayings and look cool to the media, then they would struggle very much to try and disavow what he says.
Well, if Obama had stood for election for the Democrats this time round, I'd put my house on him not winning the primaries. When he stood for election, he stood on a pretty centre-right ticket. He was almost like an American David Cameron.
Yeah.
Whereas now the Democrats, it's a shame because they have been hijacked by very, very left-wing people.
Well, they
fanatically
say
left-wing.
the party is almost split in two now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where you have, typical Democrats who, have some decent views and you can reason with and understand and sympathise. And then you have these people who are far left, who some of them don't even realise that's what they believe in. It's just what they're being taught by the media or being rallied up with these Black Lives Matter Antifa and these situations in which they believe they have to be this anti-right, they have to be this left to fix the problem when there's not a problem necessarily to be fixed.
Well, it was only a couple of days after the election. It was I want to say it was the governor of West Virginia. Anyway, a Democrat. I'll have to find out his name. He basically put on his social media that, I'm in the middle, I'm a centrist, I don't want to defund the police, etc., etc. And the AOC, well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez,
Well done.
she retweeted his thing, but with a picture of her going...
Staring at him, giving him the evils.
Giving him the evils. A man in her own party. They hadn't even won yet, according to the Associated Press. They had won, and already they were splitting. It's sad that they are a party that is in disarray, because you want good opposition.
I wonder if in a few years they will segregate to a different party, if they will split.
I wouldn't be too surprised.
Because I don't know what name they'd give them, maybe like Extreme Democrats, and they'd split it, I don't know. But it's, because this has happened in history as well for the right as well. It's happened for Republicans, it's happened in Nazi Germany. You do get extremes when things split, but it is worrying, isn't it? Because then a lot of people who typically are just normal Democrats and good people will find themselves on the wrong side of something and might even feel obliged to go along with it because they must follow the masses.
Yeah, I mean that reminds me. There's a great if there's something you're actually quite interested in, I'll give this a thought. I'll look a bit more into this. Look up #Walkaway by Brandon Straka, but it's spelled Straka. That guy founded the Walkaway movement in America, which basically was Democrats leaving the Democrat Party and switching to Donald Trump. Hence why this time around Donald Trump got at least, now we don't know fully yet because of the whole Dominion system switching votes, at least 10 million more votes than he did 4 years ago. The camera maxed out, so we had to cut and we're back in. Anyway, so back where we were. So Pennsylvania, or in particular Philadelphia, for years it's been rife for voter fraud.
Yep.
For any boxing fans out there, Joe Frazier.
I mean, that's based in Philadelphia, is it not? Rocky.
Joe Frazier, world heavyweight champion.
Yes.
Died in 2011.
Yep.
Last voted 2018.
But you can vote after you die, Callum. You know that, right?
I suppose it is there, right?
So if you put it in your will, they'll put it in for you.
Oh yeah.
Vote for me in the next election.
Days after the election, in fact, no, it's like the day after, on the Michigan State website, you could go through the voting records and put in certain figures. I saw a video of someone doing it. I then did it, and it was on the actual state website, not just a spoon, blah, blah, blah. And, this person who was born 1900 had voted.
Must have been a vegan.
Yeah, it said it shows the details. It's a bit like tracking a parcel.
Yep.
It showed the date an absentee ballot was requested,
Day it was sent.
and then it was sent back in received.
What I do want to mention though is because I've used this not case but discussed with people, and they've shown articles in which people have cross-referenced that and gone, look, when you search this database, it doesn't just cover this state, it covers the whole of America. And so there are the odd people that they found that are alive, but realistically we think are dead. Those do happen, but there is still dead people voting. There are still times in which there are actual dead people voting. And so, yes, there's going to be the odd case in which they've mistakenly put someone down who they think had the same name, around the same date of birth, died in that state, but is actually living on in another state, and that's how they voted. And they voted for the state they live in, so there's no actual fraud going on there. But that's 1 in a million. There's the odd person they've found that isn't dead. And the media will be very quick to show you them, but not quick to show you the ones who are actually dead.
Well, funny enough, speaking about people living in other states, one of the main gripes in Nevada and Georgia are people who no longer live in that state voting in that state.
They received the ballot and still voted.
Voted, yeah.
Well, I wonder, was it necessarily those people probably didn't vote? It's just the vote got sent to their previous address and then someone voted on behalf of their name?
We don't know. This is why we need an audit.
Yep.
So yeah, that's funny. That's why Sidney Powell is suing. Well, I say suing. Is taking Brian Kemp, the Republican governor of Georgia, to court because he has the power to do a signature audit on absentee ballot and hasn't done so. Very simple to do, and is the right thing to do.
In fact,
because if there is no fraud, prove it. Because there's already millions of people who don't trust the system anymore, and that in itself is a democratic crisis.
I think the trouble would be is if Biden got into power and there was nothing investigated, you'd have half of the country who wouldn't want to listen to him, who would want to be against him, and that's when you have things such as a civil war want to take place, in which leaders rise up and go, look, this is not right, let's fight. And so even if they investigate it and Biden still wins, at least they did the investigation. At least the other half of the country who disagrees with it goes, well, it was fair. Yeah.
And, Joe Biden might have won. He might have won.
He wouldn't know.
I mean, to be fair, he did say on 2 occasions he's running for the Senate.
We have to come together. That's why I'm running. I'm running as a proud Democrat for the Senate. Senate. Proud Democrat for the Senate.
So, your joke, he literally might not know.
Well, the joke is funny because it's founded in truth.
He might have won. But it needs to be proven that it was done legitimately. Because they had all the polls beforehand, there were 27 House seats that were toss-ups. Out of the 27, can you tell me how many were won by which party?
The Republican win majority. Nearly all of them, wasn't it?
It wasn't nearly all of them. It was all of them.
There we are.
27.
I was trying to remember it. I'm pretty sure it was all of them, but I didn't want to jump all in.
27 toss-up seats. They won them all. So
Sorry, I keep trying to stop myself from giggling when you say toss-up.
So some things just aren't correlating. There was a figure going around that might have been just Michigan alone. Where they didn't vote down ballot. So if anyone doesn't know what voting down ballot means, so you vote for your president, then your senator, and then like your congressman, and then different laws, etc. They only voted just for the president line. Now, how long do you reckon it would take to? Like, imagine doing it now. Ticking 5 boxes on a voting form where you got to scribble the number in, scribble the colour in.
Took me about 3 seconds.
Okay, you've got a couple 100,000 votes to make up.
Ooh.
Add those 3 seconds up.
Ooh.
That's quite difficult if you've got to try and make up ballots in the night.
I've got tea downstairs.
Now, they might not have made up ballots in the night, but at the same time, why is there legitimate footage of people turning up in the crack of dawn when this voting centre was supposedly shut with carriers?
Well, they said as well that the fraud was so easily caught out in that sense is because they didn't project Trump doing that well.
Yeah.
To the point where their fraud had to be rushed very
and
quickly.
it had to be on such a grand scale where...
Because there was a lot of ballots they said in these affidavits that they read that were delivered that were filled out correctly. But then there were ones that, which you could see were done as quick as they can, get them out next day, next 3-hour delivery, before everyone's awake. We need to get them to that poll station.
I'm just the fucking delivery guy. They're the ones over-promising customers, but I have to risk my life to get their packages to them on time. It is absolute bullshit.
Well, it's in places where, I'm not just saying it because it's a Republican area, but in places where there's not been any allegations of fraud. So in Florida, for example, Miami-Dade County is historically a very Democrat area, and it's kind of, they need to do well there to stand a chance in the rest of the state.
Yep.
Trump obliterated it. He did so much better than most of the pollsters thought he'd do in Miami-Dade that when it came to the rest of the state, the gap wasn't questionable. JustTheNews.com sounds like a weird name, like a bit of a sham name for a news source.
JustTheNews.com.
But Just the News was founded by John Solomon, who's an award-winning journalist. And the best thing about Just the News is it's impartial. It's not that it's rooting for one team. Some of the articles are like that long because it doesn't need to sex it up. I mean, if you look at the actual statistics, compared to the last election, Trump did better. That sounds awful, actually. That clearing the throat. Trump did better with every demographic except white men and dead voters.
It's hard to get the dead vote. Biden's closer to their age, so we can get in contact with them.
Well, I saw.
They say the closer you are to death, the more likely you are to speak to them, and so yeah.
I saw a thing where it's people would mock that Biden would be doing rallies in front of no one, but actually he was doing it in graveyards and it was in front of his fan base.
Yeah, they mopped that up.
But the point is that there are huge irregularities that need addressing.
Yeah, we can make jokes and sound a bit biased in our jokes, but realistically, this is a very serious situation in which we need to know the outcome realistically and save democracy. And it sounds really silly saying that, but it needs to be done. Yep. And if it comes out that Biden wins, crack on, enjoy your Sleepy
fine.
Joe.
You're done.
That's fine.
You won. Fair dues.
Cool. But
go back, regroup.
But if he didn't win, brilliant. But it's something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
And audited and sorted.
Well, I got asked by a good friend of ours. I won't name names. Don't want him publicly shamed or anything. Do I ever look at things that were on the other side, from the other viewpoint? And I do quite a lot. I will look at other politically leaning articles, news sources. But the main thing I said to him is that by and large, they're opinion pieces.
They are. Yeah.
And there could be fact in the opinion,
but it's a bird line.
Give me the statistics. Give me the proof. I don't care for an opinion piece. I want to see evidence. I want to see statistics, which is where I tend to find on the other side.
Yeah, I think that as well the trouble being is those opinion pieces are then attached to Sky News, BBC, or NBC, or what? No, is it NBC?
NBC, MSNBC, CNN.
It'll be attached to big corporations who are part of the affiliated press or part of the government press, and so it gets validation when it's just some guy who has this opinion on this specific topic manipulating the facts to match what he believes. And do I believe that fraud is taking place? Yes, but at the same time, it's not yet decided.
And why do you believe that?
Because of the facts, because of what I've been shown, because of what has been discussed and clearly shown.
I mean, there is plenty of evidence.
If it was a
case...
They
will always say no evidence, but they're refusing to either look or...
Not even look. They're turning it off before the evidence is spoken about.
Yeah. Well, yes, when Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary, was doing a thing in Michigan where she was saying that there's loads of evidence of fraud, And Fox News, they've always been a right-wing leaning news source. They said, I'm paraphrasing now, but she's not showing any evidence, and we're gonna have to turn her off. She's not gonna.
Because I can't let that as my.
Yeah. And then they shut her off. Now I was watching it online, like a live stream of it,
Was it
rather
on
than
Trump's YouTube channel. Is it not?
I can't remember. And she then goes on to state
All the evidence.
and it's not just opinions. It's sworn affidavits. It's statistical evidence, such as the 6,000 votes glitch. They often say glitch, which it's starting like it's more software.
if it happens in more than one location, then a glitch becomes a software feature. If my phone consistently decides to shut down when a battery gets to a specific level, and everyone else's phone does that, then my phone's not broken and glitched. It's designed to do that.
Yeah. Which has been proven across the state. There was one guy who conceded defeat, and then someone saw something that wasn't right. They looked into it, hand counted. Oh, he won by 1,000 votes. And one thing that people should be, wary to is that there's been Democrats that have come forward. Democrats have come forward with evidence saying they were told to do this, and despite it going against their party, their beliefs, their main belief is they're Americans, and democracy should be free and fair.
And I think if the media wasn't so biased, I'd like to think the general masses would feel the same way these Democratic leaders have felt. But unfortunately, the media is censored in such a way that the masses almost have a very extremist view. And it's such a shame because they don't know they do. And they don't mean to because they are good people. But unfortunately, they know no better.
Mm.
And I'm not trying to talk as if I'm better than them. It's just I have seen facts and have looked past. I mean, the reason I sort of came woke to the news and how the media are is when coronavirus took place and seeing the case rise in the fearmongering that went on in the Sky News. Callum actually did call it. Fair play. But the fearmongering that goes on at Sky News, to the point where I actually had to just unfollow Sky News and Facebook. For years, I had them on Facebook and would rely on them for sport, news, weather, and all sorts. I had to unfollow them. I could not deal anymore with the fear-mongering and the lies they put out.
And the opinion pieces.
Yeah.
I hate when a news source puts out an opinion piece. By all means, we've all got one. They're like arseholes. Some are dirtier than others.
Yeah.
But we all have an opinion. But news sources shouldn't. They should literally just the news. That is why I like that site so much, because it is literally just the news. Some things on there, they go against the side I support or what I believe in. But then I go, oh wait, there is evidence backing that up. But it's honest. And that's what
I think, because it's
news
so
lacks.
clear cut of what's been hidden in the current news, is that now we're being woken to it, as it were.
What people often speak of the Great Awakening.
Yeah.
Which I think we are probably about to see. I think it's coming to a boiling point.
I think if all this fraud is proven and Trump does win, I think that's when the masses will go, oh.
I think it takes one state. As soon as one state is proven in
They'll
court,
all drop.
they
Dominoes.
will all. I mean, in Pennsylvania today, a judge ordered to halt the certification process.
Yep.
Why would they do that? Because there are claims that need looking into.
Well, they've got to get more ballots.
Yeah. One last thing before we talk about coronavirus.
Yeah.
There was. Have you heard of Richard Hopkins?
I haven't, no.
He's a U.S. postal worker.
Okay.
Anyway, so he got in touch with Project Veritas, which James O'Keefe, the guy who works there, he's had a bit of a checkered past. But that aside, what he's doing now, he's reporting evidence. He's not just putting out opinion pieces. He's reporting people's story that won't be reported on other sites. So this guy got in touch with James O'Keefe because there was a couple of US postal workers who got in touch saying that they'd seen ballots backdated, so before the cut-off date for the election, the getting rid of ballots that had Trump on, and he came forward because he had a story to tell. Anyway, his story got quite a bit of traction. A federal investigator, they got him in to talk about it. Anyway, he then did his own recording and caught this federal investigator out, I forget his name, for trying to coerce him. So Richard Hopkins had evidence of voter fraud. A federal investigator wasn't necessarily investigating that. He was then basically investigating him and coercing him. You can...
Wow.
We'll have to try and get the link for it and put it in the link for this.
Any sources for this, by the way, I will be putting in the description. We should have said that beforehand.
Yeah. We'll back up all the claims we make.
Callum will send me all the sources after, and I'll link them into the description.
And so, yeah, Richard Hopkins is being coerced by this federal investigator. And then certain news sites, I think the Washington Post was the main one, said they put out in one of their articles that Richard Hopkins has redacted his affidavit.
Oh, is this man?
Yes.
Who then had to release a statement saying,
And then
I have
Richard
not
Hopkins
redacted.
had to put out a video saying, no, I haven't redacted anything. If anything, you now have to redact that statement saying I've redacted my statement.
You redact your redact, and I redact my redact.
Yeah, because he's like, I'm not redacting anything because it is true. What I'm not.
If anything,
Because I mean that guy, he's not on a.
could that not
box
count
out.
as slander on his name?
I mean, I would be taken to court, but then you think, right, who is the judge on their side? But more
Depends what
importantly, yeah, I mean, what they're doing is wrong and probably illegal. I mean, what the federal investigators doing was definitely illegal.
Yep.
But yes, so we have ranted a bit and rambled on.
But it's a conversation.
It's a conversation that I think has to be
And
had.
if there's anything you want to put your input, as civilly as you could, please.
Yeah, if you
Because I don't want to be going through the
dispute any
comments
of our
having to
claims-
filter you because you're basically just swearing. Just if you have a different opinion, we will happily listen. We're not here to try and censor people or just have our own views.
Yeah.
We want a conversation.
It's an ugly topic, but I think it has to be talked about in a civil manner.
Has to be. And that's what
And-
we try to do here.
Yeah, and you know, as I've said it, and I know Corey definitely agrees with it. If you've got claims that you can back, change my mind. My mind's not a solid state. It's a fluid thing. I'm happy to completely change my views if anything backs it up.
I was quite left wing a couple of years ago, and my views have changed. Now, if that can happen, it can happen anywhere. And so it's often in the climate we live in now, it's a very black or white place. I don't mean that for racially. I just mean as in, you know, either you're left or you're right. You can't be centre right, you can't be centre left, either you're left or right.
Get
You're
off
against
the
me or
fence.
you're with me. Yeah. And so minds can be changed, things can be proven and things can be disproven. So we will happily have a conversation if needs be.
And it's a shame that we probably will lose friends over this. I hope we don't. I hope that actually some of my friends are even thinking about that and go, now he said that. Okay, so let's have a conversation. Have a conversation with me. I will happily talk politics until the cows come home.
Yep.
But if you're going to get aggressive and nasty, don't want to hear it. Anyway, back to the UK. Coronavirus. The totalitarian state we live in.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people will, if you give some form of evidence or reasoning of why you think things are happening, they'll probably just shout conspiracy theorist, which I think is actually becoming as such a discredited term as racism. You know, this racist really has lost its meaning.
Yep.
Like, there are things that are truly horrifically racist that are now just being put in a group with somebody who's just said that's black and that's white.
Well, that's the thing. When I just said black and white, I felt the need to correct it to go not racially.
Yeah.
Just in case that seems racist.
Well, it's if I was to, well, actually, wait. Have you seen that? Yeah, you have seen the video where it's basically they ask 100 black people what white people are superior at.
Yeah.
That video is that link is going in. This.
Imagine doing that, but the
If
other
that
way
was
around.
the other way around, all hell would break loose. That video literally is racist.
But I think as well the trouble with those sorts of videos is that the majority of people, black, whites, Hispanic, whatever it may be, they don't agree with that video. It tends to be the woke individuals who want an issue,
Yeah.
who do those sorts of videos.
I do like to think it is a minority, but my God, they're a loud minority.
But yeah, the minority have the control of the media at times, don't they?
Yeah, unfortunately.
And they can get all the clickbaits they need because the minority tends to be the most controversial,
Yeah.
which then brings out clicks.
But yeah, so they will shout, conspiracy theorist. But picture this: go back 12 months' time, and I say to you, in 12 months' time, you won't be able to see your grandma. You'll have to wear a mask to get bread and milk for a virus that, unfortunately, it does kill some people, but kills less than 1% of the population. It kills less than suicide.
Before you get triggered by that, that's the statistics.
Yes. You probably say that's a conspiracy theorist. That's conspiracy theory.
I would just ignore you. I'd be like, what a weirdo.
Yeah. You're like, you're chatting shit. It wasn't that crazy.
Like, what a shit conversation starter.
Yeah.
Talk to me about football.
But I mean, Watergate. That was a conspiracy.
Yep.
Until it was proven by Bernstein. Bernstein and Woodward. They were the journalists back when journalists were real journalists and actually. I mean, it's a dangerous job. They'd actually find out real stuff. Now they just do what they're told.
Well, they can do what we're doing right now and just sit from the comfort somewhere and research.
Yes.
The fact we can do the exact same job as them and we're not actually in the field shows you where journalism has gone.
Yeah.
And how an easy field it can be in to get in.
But yeah, they'd say that, conspiracy theorists, but I mean, it's 2020. Literally anything can happen nowadays. Madonna looked like she was shitting in a bath.
I still theorise she was. She's just trying to play off she didn't shit herself and got the camera.
Yeah, so it makes you think that why are we under such tyranny? Because I mean, it's soft tyranny, really. Why can't I play tennis? What about coronavirus puts me at risk by playing tennis outdoors? At max, you're with 3 other people, but if you were to play one-on-one, there is no danger of you passing anything on. It's almost like in a communist state, sod the health bit, you're all going to be equally unhappy.
Unless you're at the top.
Unless you're at the top.
Then the rules don't apply to you.
Oh, of course not.
No.
Because, the twosome gruesome, Witty and Valance. I mean, I know Valance has £600,000 in a pharmaceutical company.
Nutty.
He has a conflict of interest there, and yet he is locking down the nation for a virus that, again, unfortunately, does kill some people. But even those statistics are skewed.
I think right now what we're seeing with the statistics themselves is that they're almost reporting flu cases as now COVID cases as well, and they're not actually filtering in between what is what.
Yeah.
Like someone will die of cancer, oh, they had COVID in their system. Yes, but they had cancer. Someone died of the flu, but COVID was in their system. Yes, but they probably would have died this year from flu. And I don't want to try and minimize people's livelihood and how they've been affected. People have lost family members to this disease, and I do, feel for you, and I'm sorry. But at the same time, we are now in a state in which the world must go on, and we're relying on statistics that aren't accurate.
Massively inaccurate.
And once you find out what's real, similar to this election stuff we discussed, it's so remarkable that we're being treated like this.
We are imprisoned. I mean, I think these tier 3, 2, and 1, it's locked down with a different name. Maybe it's a form of divide and conquer. All right, you can have some freedom, you can't. There you go. You've just split the opposition, because some of them are actually going to be happy in a sense of, oh, we got something back. I like to think in a bit of a gambler. Sometimes you get to a point. So let's say with odds of evens, you put a £15 bet on, it loses. So you put a £30 bet on to try and get that back, it loses. You're now £45 down, £45 down. You put a £30 bet on, that loses. So you're now £75 down. You try it once more and it wins. But with £30, you've got 60 quid. You go, get in, I've got 60 quid. But actually, you're still in total £15 down, but you're just happy you stopped the rot.
Yes.
I need to name that term, but I think it could kind of catch on. But yeah, anyway, so I'm reading here on the Daily Mail. Builder, 51, who died from falling from 10-foot ladder was actually killed by coronavirus, doctors say. A guy fell from a ladder and died, was given that as his death. This just, I mean, if it happens once, it can happen a million times. But we are actually seeing more and more that it happens all too often, that cases of people dying of completely different things.
I mean, they said it on, I can't remember, it's quite a while ago now, but on Sky News themselves, they said if you contracted coronavirus in March, recovered come June, but then got hit by a bus in July, you're a COVID death.
Well, yeah, Public Health England themselves admitted it, and yet we still go under their rule.
It's something where you're almost lost for words.
Debate me.
Yeah, you're almost lost for words to what to say for it, because it's so stupid. It's so... And I do wonder if Boris had it, but wasn't so ill, if this wouldn't be taken seriously.
See, I think with Boris, it's one of two ways. Either he's complicit and is gaining something from this. I mean, we're seeing the amount of figures that have been thrown around. £12 billion for an app that doesn't work as good as Angry Birds.
Good app, Angry Birds.
Yeah. Some guy got 21 million quid for some contacts. Like, the money's being thrown around like it's going out of fashion. Maybe he's not gaining from this. Maybe he's not complicit. In that case, I think either he was
Incompetent.
so what that's a given. That's not even a theory. That's a given.
Yes.
Or he reacted so badly to it that he is compromised.
This is what I think. I think it's
He's
almost
shit scared, and I think he's compromised. And it's
But yeah, Boris, I think, is, as you said, compromised. He's no longer impartial because he had the virus so badly himself. You know, he was nearly on his deathbed. That, you know,
and I think one of the reasons was, and he even said it himself, this isn't just me being nasty.
Unhealthy.
He's fat.
Do you see the videos of him with his PET running around in the forest or wherever it was?
Yeah.
Once he recovered. And you know, being an avid gym goer myself, I mean, we do another podcast, don't we? Laws of Fitness.
Which we don't talk about politics at all, by the way. So if you're not interested in this, but you are interested in fitness, Laws of Fitness.
Laws of Fitness. Link will also be in the description. But he closed the gyms, but then kept pubs open.
Well, and Mackey's.
And Mackey's. They were the first to open, even though he himself basically understood that exercise was one of his best weapons against the virus. Yeah. And yet he closed down the one place in which people can go and exercise and get healthy, but that kept open McDonald's, KFC, pubs, takeout. And don't get me wrong, if you work in that industry and you need them open, it's great. If you can open that, just open everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sweden, yeah, so some people say, yeah, well, they're sparsely populated and you can't quite compare. But
it's not just Sweden, though, is it? Wasn't it Denmark, was it, or Finland?
I think a couple of, yeah, I think some.
And they're actually better than Sweden.
Yeah, well,
and they didn't do a lot
so some people would then use the argument, yeah, well, Sweden actually did worse than their neighbours. But Sweden actually, in the past year or so, they got off lightly with their flu season. So basically, it just caught up those who would have gone then, went now. But I suppose just to finish up, we talk about Boris Johnson being compromised or incompetent. He goes off one of his advisors, Professor Neil Ferguson, who has been wrong with all his predictions with viruses. Speaking of Sweden, he did the same model for us for Sweden when they said they were going for herd immunity, and said you'll lose 85,000 people. They lost 4,000. At the same time, he said there'll be 500,000 people here die if we don't lock down. Okay, we lock down. What does he do? Goes and shags his married mistress. Now, it's either one rule for us and one for them, or it's really not as big of a problem as they make out. Otherwise, why would they break the rules?
A needs a must, I suppose. You need to bust that nut.
Yeah.
I'm a male, I get it.
I mean, yeah, well, that sense, I completely understand. I mean, if he hadn't shut down the country, I'd high-five him.
Yeah. Yeah, and the trouble is, because coronavirus has been going on for so long now, as I said, so you are almost left for words in a lot of instances, because it's got to the point where I just want to sigh and roll my eyes at the situation, because it's clearly shown they're incompetent. They do not know what they're doing with this, and it's guessing by the day.
I mean, I'm an avid conservative. I can't see me ever voting for this party again.
Or at least until possibly Boris is...
Or Boris has to go.
Yeah.
I think he'll be gone next year, by the way. Put money on it, 3-1.
3-1.
Yeah.
Betting odds of the week.
Oh, the odds have plummeted since.
Oh.
But to finish with, I mean, this has been our first one. Probably a bit ropey, bit rambly.
I'll see what I can do in the editing.
But if you have any questions, if you want to debate us, again, we are all for polite debate. Reason with us. You might change our mind, we might change yours. But politics has to become a more dinner table topic. It has to be something that's not taboo to talk about. And hopefully we can do our bit to get that going. And if you want some good reading material for what I just think is quite a good read and scarily relevant, George Orwell's 1984. My God, it's accurate. Right. I've been Callum. Thank you very much.
And I've been Corey.
Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned.
Thank you for listening.